Because growth doesn't come from comfort, it comes from doing the shit that you don't feel like doing. This is Discomfort Required.
What's up, guys? This is Discomfort Required. I have my good buddy Adam Everett on with us today. We're going to get into Adam's whole story, what he has going on now, how we got to the point where we're at. And I just want everybody to hear all the cool things that he's done and what drives him to continue to stay striving forward, right? Adam, how are you, my friend?
Oh, man, appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Super stoked about this. So first thing, like we ask this, everybody that comes on, what does Discomfort Required mean to you?
Man, it's the life heartbeat of what I'm going through right now. And that is the fact that endurance is required for growth, and discomfort really matches that. Most men in my life and most men in general, we seek to escape. And there's so many stats that follow that trend. Whether it be pornography or drug addiction or alcoholism or divorce rates. I mean, you name it, we seek comfort over discomfort. And I would say the idol of the American culture is comfort. Yeah. Yeah, so for me, it's like James 1 for Desert City, both for Desert City Classic, which is a CrossFit competition that we run and own, then into Endure, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But that word to me, has really defined the last 3 years of my life. And it's awesome, man, what you're doing. And discomfort is absolutely required for growth in every area of your life. And so, when I break it down, we are not just physical beings, so discomfort in terms of physical, in order to grow muscle, we have to be uncomfortable or have to embrace discomfort, right? But also for me, it's like, you got to look at it in different layers. We're not just physical beings. We're also emotional beings. How do we embrace discomfort when our emotions take the toll? Oftentimes we lead with our emotions, so we claim that that's the sort of due north or truth in our life, which oftentimes is not. We have to really be prepared for that. What's uncomfortable is not raising our voice when we're angry, or not feeling like, man, this is truth when we are battling anxiety or, depression of sorts, and there's all kinds of ways in which we can really go through that. Often it's very, very uncomfortable, right? So that goes into like the mental. And then obviously for me, I'm a big proponent and advocate for some form of higher power. And, for me, it's God or Jesus Christ. And so for me, it's like the spiritual component is a huge part of that. And Jesus talks a lot about that. He talks about, hey, if you want to gain this, what is it to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit your soul? If you want to follow me, you must take up your cross and die daily. I mean, there's some really radical teachings that he talked about. And so for me, it's like there's discomfort there. And I would say that's a definition of discipleship. And to me, discipleship times discipline equals a formation of who you are. It takes both of those to really lean into the best version of yourself. So I love what you're doing. I think this is absolutely required in our society. So it's a great line.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I spent a lot of time on it, right? Like, it's just one of those things. It's, when you get up to work out, it's going to be uncomfortable. You just have to be uncomfortable with it. And you can't grow without change, right? And there's a lot of people that just take the easy way out and they're like, oh, this is fine, right? I'm fine with just being mediocre, right? And it's like, I don't like saying that, but it's like, it happens so easy, right? People are just like, oh, this is fine. Like, work is fine. I'm unhappy, but I get up and I do this every day. And it's like, that's no way to live, right? So it's like, my philosophy is do as many things that make you less unhappy every single day, because you're not going to be happy every day. Just do things that make you less unhappy, right? So like, have an extra cup of coffee if you want a cup of coffee. If you need 20 minutes to just sit with your thoughts, right? Like, that's uncomfortable. One of the biggest things that I've ever done after I moved to Seattle, which was a whole nightmare in all in itself, is like being alone so much and being with your thoughts is probably one of the most difficult things that I've ever done. And I'm sure if people actually did it and sat and like was like, oh, wow, that's an unpleasant place to be, and they got to address some things, that's how we go, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, man. One of the things I talk about a lot for men, especially, is just awareness. So aware of who you are, aware of what you feel. aware of your surroundings and other people's feelings and thoughts. And there's so many times where we're so distracted, we're desensitized a lot of times. So we're overstimulated. The dopamine hits that we're constantly craving and constantly seeking. So that desensitizes us, and I think there's a lot of ways in which our habits or our environments will shape and create a lack of awareness. And so if we're not in tune to how we feel, and then how we portray other people's feelings, or how we're able to discern that, there's a huge lack of awareness within our society. And so, I think for me, that's the number one thing for men especially, is to be aware. And you have to, exactly what you just said, you have to sit with your feelings. And that is a very scary thing. It's like, what am I feeling right now? And a lot of times for men, it's, I'm just angry, and that's kind of the right emotion to say, I'm pissed off right now, man, and it's like, well, no, that's not actually a feeling. That's a symptom, or that's a cause of what is going on inside. What is actually going on? And you have to sit with yourself to be able to say, man, I'm actually feeling pretty sad. I'm actually feeling, whatever it may be, but to actually get down to the level of the deep waters, I would say, there's a proverb that says it takes insight from a man who knows the deep waters. And so we have to seek out other people's wisdom in order to really pull that out. And so, it's a hard thing. And so we need people around us. We need the right people around us, and we need the right voices, a counsel of wisdom, in order to pull out the deep waters of our soul, and in order for us to really know ourselves the best. And that's really the path of what we're trying to seek, is be the best version of yourself. Well, it takes sitting with your thoughts, and it takes counsel of other people that are wiser, that are beyond your years, to be able to speak into your life in a very gentle and graceful way.
Yeah. It's like, and having conversations like this, right? You're two friends sitting around talking, and it's like, you have your beliefs, right? And I'm a very spiritual person, right? Like, I believe there's something out there. Don't know what it is, but like, whatever it is, has done a lot of things, right? And has put everything in my path 150% for a reason. It's like, I started CrossFit to end up where I'm at, to marry my fiance, because that's how I met her, right? Like, for sure, because we are going to do, like, we're already doing really cool things. Like, I feel like being the personal trainer and like remote coach and all that stuff, like, I get to help people daily, but like, it is like in my blood, right? That is what I am meant to do, right? And my fiance, she also coaches. You met Chelsea. She's dope. And she helped me in like one of my darkest times, and I helped her in one of her darkest times. And it wasn't like trauma bonding. It was just like, yo, we're doing this. I got your back. You have my back. And like, we're just going to get through it. Right. So like, it's super, super helpful having the right people around you. And what's crazy, especially you being a prior gym owner, which we're going to get into, is like, you can tell who is right for you and who is wrong for you in your gym. Right. So it's like, if you have 200, how many members do you guys have before you sold?
We had close to 300.
Okay. So like, that is a huge, huge, huge population in a gym. Right. And the community gets pushed in so many different ways, right? So like, I have ran gyms that have had 25 people, and I've ran gyms that have 220 people. And there's certain numbers where things change. And it's like, oh, this clique is over here, and they're doing whatever they're doing. And then this clique is over here, and they're causing trauma. And then trauma with this team, it gets to be a nightmare, right? And then you kind of get to a place where you're like, this isn't for me, right? So like, when I Riot, there was plenty of times where I'm just like, I need to be done with this. And it turns out I needed to be done with it, and we're in a much better spot, and it just happened the way it was supposed to, and it worked out perfectly. So I want to get into what got you into fitness and how you ended up owning a gym and ultimately making Desert City so big, because I competed there this last year, and let me tell you, man, like, I've competed at Wadapalooza, I've competed at NorCal Classic, and yours, hands down, best run competition I've ever been to. 100%.
Dude, wow. Well, thank you for that. That's huge praise, and very honored to serve the community in this aspect. It's something that I never thought that in a million years, I never thought I would own a CrossFit competition. But, when we saw a need, it was just simply meet a need. And I think that's how I've really just served in my life, is see a need, meet a need. And that's, from background in being a pastor, being in ministry for so many years, being in nonprofit work, you see a need, you meet a need. Yeah, there's so many aspects of that. How we continue to live our lives. We live our lives for the service of others. At the end of the day, that's how we're built. We're built for. You kind of talked a little bit about this, the tipping point of bodies or people, in communities, and there very much is. We weren't designed to have hundreds of thousands of people in one space. We're very tribal in nature, and tribes ran lower than 150. And so when you get to a place where it's larger than that, there is a little disruption that happens, and there's a little bit of uncomfortableness that happens, and there's a little bit unnatural aspects of it. And so for us at the gym, we actually moved here to plant a church. So we moved to Mesa, Arizona, a church, and it was in the midst of COVID. 2020 happened, and it really disrupted everything. And so we were in the midst of that, trying to figure out what exactly we were going to do. And CrossFit was kind of and fitness was really the grounding for me. That really originated. I mean, it's for me, it's always been a part of my life ever since I could remember. I saw my mom lead aerobics in my living room as a kid. She went to the church and led, aerobics classes there. So I always saw her working out, and she really, she led our family in that way. My dad didn't really work out. He was a golfer, and, it wasn't until later on in my life he quit smoking and kind of started getting more into fitness. But my mom, as a kid, she really was the driver in that. And so I saw her, and then she would help me with, she got me I can't remember the magazines, but muscle and fitness magazines and stuff like that when I was a kid. Hey, here's some dudes that are really ripped. And so I was like, man, I want to be like that.
Exactly.
So that was really the crux of it. I was always into sports. So I played college basketball. So I would work out on a regular basis. And then after college, after I kind of hung the sneakers up, it was like, okay, what do I do now? And I found CrossFit. Really, it scratched that competitive itch that I had. And it was cool to be able to go in and compete not only against myself, but against other people, and have this community that I was so accustomed to with a team. I was so accustomed to that growing up of, hey, we're going to do some really hard stuff together. And we're going to go out there, and we're going to go, we're going to give it our all, blood, sweat, and tears for this game. And so it kind of resembled that an aspect within the CrossFit gym.
Oh yeah, I felt the same way. Yeah, as soon as I found out, I was like, because I played hockey growing up, right? And I was on a bunch of traveling teams, and I loved it, but I burned myself out on it, right? And
Absolutely.
Then partied my ass off, and I was in a band and made all sorts of bad decisions and all those fun things. And I realized hey, I need to get my shit together. And then I did, and I found CrossFit, and I was like, oh, wow, that's the thing I've been missing the whole time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, so I know I'm bouncing around a bit, but yeah, the origins of this was my mom, and then I continue on. And then when I was about 29 years old, my wife gave me, for my birthday, a pregnancy test that was positive. So we were expecting our first child.
Nice.
I was 29, and I had the dad bod was going, and I was not at a shape that I was proud of. And
okay.
I definitely was not healthy. And I was like, man, I really want to be this for my kids. I want to be a good example for them, not only spiritually as I'm leading, but also I want to be healthy physically. And so that was really my 1-2 punch of I want to be a spiritual leader, but I also want to be somebody that is a that takes up the mantle of taking care of their body, and really is attuned to that. And so really got into CrossFit in 2013-14.
Okay.
And then I was a part of a great community, Midwestern built in Joplin, Missouri. And I saw Jason Ansley, is a good friend of mine, and saw him lead well, lead his gym well, lead his community well, build a community around mind, body, and soul. So it really just drove me to want that more and more for my own life. being a pastor, being in ministry, I saw the dichotomy of, people taking care of their spiritual life, but not taking care of their physical life. And the two go hand in hand. And I
For
saw
sure.
a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and not to say that's not totally associated with taking care of your physical life, but it does help, when you get out, you move your body, you get sunlight, you start to understand, when you're going through those bouts of depression or anxiety, what you need. And often what you need is to move. And often what you need is to lift some weights or to be around people. And so often what you want to do is you want to recluse, or you want to get into those negative thoughts or feelings. And for me, I never realized how much I was battling depression and anxiety until I was going through it, until I was, really in the midst of it. And that season of expecting a child, going through a hard bout of ministry and responsibilities and all those things, my career is like not knowing, turning 30, not understanding what I was going to do next. I was like, man, I'm more messed up than what I thought I was. And so CrossFit really and the community really took me out of that and gave me kind of a new life and new perspective on, faith and family and fitness and all those things. And so I knew from right there, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my career in ministry, but I knew that fitness was going to always be a part of it. And so, moving here in 2019, it hit, we had an opportunity to buy into the gym. And I was like, man, this is it. This is the sort of the mold that I've been crafting for this whole time and building. Was I wanted something like this. And so we took an opportunity and dove in, and that's where Desert City started and all those things.
Dude, I love that so much. It is like an inspiring story, right? So it's like fitness kind of brings everybody together in a way, right? So like where it's at now, right? Not necessarily like going to global gyms and things like that, but like I wouldn't know you if it wasn't for CrossFit. Right?
Absolutely.
There's plenty of people in the world that I wouldn't know if it wasn't for CrossFit. Like my best friend Stacy, I wouldn't know him. John, who did all of our competition photos, he's going to be coming up to shoot our wedding, right? And he's a good friend of mine now. And it's like those things, like those little things are super, super important. But having that same community everywhere is like, that's where it's at, man. It's like, oh, drop in somewhere. Cause like I dropped in at your gym, and it was because I was down here I was down in Mesa for,
conference, I think.
Oh, yeah. It was Big Little Gyms conference, and just dropped in because I wanted to work out, and it was like met you, Chip, taught forever, and then it was like, okay, this is the thing, and stayed in contact and all that. So when you started Desert City, how small was it, and like how did you get it to grow? The reason I want to talk about this specifically is because most people wouldn't take on the initiative to make it get bigger and bigger and bigger, because as it gets bigger, it gets harder to run. And it gets hard, like there's so many more obstacles to climb. So let's talk about what led up to it and what led to you being all in and full time on it, essentially.
Yeah. So it started actually prior to us owning the gym. It started with the Granite Games throwdowns. I was actually just talking with Matt O'Keefe about this because he was leading Loud and Live at that time, and they had acquired Granite Games. And they started doing these Granite Games throwdowns, these regional throwdowns. And we were nominated for that. We put in, CrossFit Insight did. And so I was just a volunteer at that time. I was running we just launched our church. I was a full-time pastor there, and we just wanted to give back to the community. So we actually sponsored, we were one of the sponsors for the Granite Games throwdown and the first, what was called DC Slam.
Okay.
And we just sponsored it. And so I took care of the volunteers. Our team did. We built a team around that because we know the heartbeat behind competitions and the lifeblood of the community is volunteers. And so that was a big part of what we did and doing and helping out the gym and helping out the community in that way. And at that time, it was like, I don't know, around 60 to 80 athletes. And it really sustained that for a couple years. And then after COVID, when we bought into the gym, we really had this, and what do we do with this? It was DC Slam. We were in the gym. Can we make it bigger? Our gym was, 100 square feet in the black mat space. So it was really small in regards to, what we could do. And so we started, my friend Jason, who I mentioned, runs Monster Games. Started talking with him about what could we do, how could we do it, and so we actually drove up to. We had a couple guys drove up to Monster Games in Joplin, Missouri, grabbed their rig, the competition rig that they use, drive it back down to Mesa, and so we set up at a church parking lot. A church that was just outside of CrossFit Insight.
Okay.
So we had a competition floor inside and then a competition floor outside. And that year we went from, 80 athletes to a little over 100, about 120 athletes. And I was like, oh man, this is really cool. And we had a bunch of photographers come in. We had, MC come in, Tony Phillips, who's been MCs for, a bunch of different syndicate, and he's going to be down at Wadapalooza. We just tried to make it more professional, and feel like, man, this is like a games-like experience for the average athlete. Everybody loved it. And so after that year, we were like, man, I think we need to move I think we're outgrowing our space. Let's look for another space. And so we looked around all around Mesa and the Valley area, Phoenix area, and we couldn't find anything because we didn't want to go into a convention center, and there's no knocking competitions that go into convention center, but it's just a building, a shell, and there's only so much you can do. We wanted to have a pool aspect, wanted to have a field aspect, wanted to have inside, outside, but we wanted to have it all in one place. And so we found ASU, Arizona State University, said, hey, I think there's this spot will really work well with you. We're actually looking at a different site, and we got connected with the guys who oversee the Sun Devil Fitness Complex, which is a student center at ASU. And so we went over there, we looked at it and was like, man, this is perfect. 15 lanes for swimming. We have 2 indoor areas for competition floors. And then we have this 7-acre field outside to do pretty much whatever we want. And so we made the call. We said, okay, let's put the deposit down. Not knowing, to even just break even, needed over 300 athletes. So we needed to triple what we did the last year. And we had no clue what we were doing. And that first year at ASU, we had over 400 athletes. We actually, our team, we own this with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So my wife and I co-own it with my brother and sister-in-law. We invited them to come and be a part of it. And he has experience in judging. He's been kind of like a head judge or a judge in the circuit for a long time, and has a heart for the community and has a heart for the competition side, and just has an incredible mind of making it all work and putting a team together to make it seamless. And so knew that we wanted to do it with them. And him and I and a small team, we did not sleep for 24 hours in putting this thing together, because that was all we had was 24 hours, from Thursday to first thing Friday. Our first year at ASU, we put the whole thing together in 24 hours, and it was about killed us. But it was absolutely, it was a high, man, for us. It's just like seeing the community come together, seeing people come out, seeing all the states that were represented.
Yeah.
And then obviously quadrupling in size from, just over 100 athletes, over 400 in that first year span was just incredible, and has really nothing to do with us and everything to do with the heart of the community, especially here in the Valley, just wanting something bigger and wanting to be a part of something bigger. That to us was just, you cast the vision, if you build it, they will come. And that was really it, man. Like, it was like, hey, we're going to build this. And we just invited everybody to be a part of it. And they showed up and really showed out for that first year.
That's awesome, dude. So what year was the first year at ASU?
First year at ASU was 2022.
2022. Okay. So you went up to 400 athletes. So like you still did you have like all the signage and everything that you have now? I mean, I know it's grown over time and all that stuff, but like, was it just like bare bones the first year?
Yeah, we knew we needed huge 30-foot by 70-foot banner that we have. So we got that. We got minimal things. I mean, we were really riding a shoestring budget for sure.
Yeah.
That's what people don't really understand is the sheer amount of money that it takes to put an event on like that, and that capacity and that size. It's a lot of expense. And you're constantly evaluating and getting sponsors to, donate things or give things to like for equipment and things like that. So we had Giant Lifting was an equipment sponsor that year. We borrowed let's see, what did we do? That first year at ASU, they actually built a rig for us. So Giant built a rig and then ended up selling us the rig after that year because they originally thought they were going to be in the competition, business and kind of do that more on a frequent basis. And they were like, man, this is a lot of work. So they're like, here, we'll sell you the rig. So we designed the rig for the space. They sold us a rig. And then we had just kind of hodgepodge equipment together and made it work, and it was that was kind of the realization for us was, man, this is a lot more than what we were experiencing in the gym. Going from having all the equipment there in the gym, using and utilizing the equipment that you had in the gym versus now not having the gym as a scapegoat for or a safeguard for acquiring all that equipment to now you have to get it all yourself. And that was a huge undertaking.
I could only imagine. So
yeah, man.
So when I know there had to be decisions in a lot of talks like, okay, do we keep this going? Do we try to make it bigger and all that stuff? So when did you decide to step away from the gym and go all in on Desert City?
Yeah, so that year, 2022, I misspoke. So 2022 is the first year in ASU.
Okay.
2022, we made it happen. 2022 is the last year at the gym. 2023, we're getting ready to ramp up. So there's a lot of work that needed to happen in that year to really make November happen. I was working my tail off, we bought into the gym. We were trying to make that a viable business where it would pay us a decent salary. We're redoing, a lot of things. Pricing, membership pricing was all over the board. So we're aligning that. I mean, all of those things to really make it a viable business and to be able to, kind of feed our family. And my wife and I were co-owning that. So we're leading together in that. And I was also doing my ministry job, traveling a lot. And so obviously when I was traveling, I was out. And that was the thing about the gym. You had to be there in order to make it work. And so she took the brunt of a lot of the changes and shifts that we were making in order to make it a viable business. Obviously people had a hard time with that. We all have a hard time with change. And that word is, kind of a curse word, if you will, when, things happen and things are going on, like people don't like it. People don't like to be disrupted or uncomfortable in that regard. So she took a brunt of that. And there was months of us just going back and forth and we were constantly at each other's throats and our life, what I thought was going to be this alignment and this huge crescendo of, man, faith and fitness coming together and we were discipling and we were baptizing people and people are coming to faith and all of these things were incredibly good, but my home life was a disaster. And I would say more so than anything, my internal life was an absolute wreck. My emotional life was out of whack. My spiritual life was completely bare. And it was just, I was not well. And my wife knew it. I would say probably my closest people knew it, but they couldn't quite put a finger on it and call me out on it. But my wife at some point, so November of us doing the last Desert DC Slam was what it was called. And we started rebranding and really trying to ramp up for Desert City Classic. So got the venue, made the deposit. We were all in with next year being really, really big, which meant a lot of work. And so I was doing essentially 3 different jobs that were full-time and expected full-time from me. And I was a disaster. And my wife looked at me and it was April 2023. I made some of the worst decisions of my life. And at that point, not knowing where to go or what to do, I was making a call to basically run away from everything. I wanted to get out of ministry. I wanted to get out of our marriage. I wanted to get out of owning the gym and I wanted just to escape. I wanted to run because I didn't know how to handle it. And I went to essentially do all of those things, quit my job and ministry, and all of that. And I had a great group and mentor and friends that came alongside and said, we're not giving up on you and you're not giving up on yourself.
Yeah.
And they really came around and restored myself. I went through counseling, coaching. My wife and I did intensive counseling and really brought our marriage back together. And at that point, we decided what needs to go. You know, we have to say no to some things in order to say yes to the best things that life has to offer us, and how we can show up and be our best selves. And so, as much as I hated it, the gym was we got to say no to this right now. And
For
so
sure.
we said no to the gym. We sold it to one of our coaches, and we walked through the hardest, most difficult 5-6 months of my life.
Probably. I can only imagine.
Where there were so many doubts, so many sleepless nights, so many nights where I didn't sleep in our bed, or I slept with another friend's house, or, just trying to get my life together. So many counseling sessions, so many dark nights of the soul is what I call it. And it was only through enduring that pain and that suffering that I actually got to a place where I found myself again, and, found this light and this renewed passion and fervor for God and for my faith, and then obviously for my marriage and my kids and all of those things. And so, I say this, Desert City really was a big part of that. It was a huge part of that, is like creating something and doing something with such a purpose and for a community that I really loved and cherished. That didn't have, it was just different from the gym, but I was still a part of it. And so it was really our life's mission to be able to pour into that, and to see it be successful in a way that that so few people will ever understand,
For sure.
Because to me, it's more than just a competition. I say this a lot, but the Desert City, or desert, we almost called it desert culture, but Desert City is really going after Matthew 3, where Jesus was sent into the desert. It says like he just got baptized. And then he was sent into the desert, and it says in the Message version, it says for the test. And that was where he went through 40 days of fasting, where he was tempted by Satan. And, he comes out of that and into this renewed, not necessarily renewed, but a focused on what he was called to do. And that was to go to the cross and die for our sins so that we could have life, and life to the fullest through him. And, I just look at that, where for us, for all of us, there's a test and there's a desert time that we're going through, exactly what your title of this podcast is.
For sure.
It is going to happen, but it's a matter of what you're going to do when it happens that makes the world a difference.
Absolutely.
How are you going to go through it? And to me, that's really where the turning point was for Desert City. That was really the turning part for ministry for me. That was the turning part for my life and marriage and family, was going through that hard time and that hardship and that hard season.
Yeah.
And to see the fruit of that going through it, it was incredible.
And dude, thanks for sharing that. Like that's not easy to talk about, right? Like, it's always easy for people that are struggling with whatever, just to be like, oh, we're fine, we're gonna get through it, and like not really addressing all the things, right? So it sounds like, you hit it head on, right? I mean, yeah, there's dark times, there's so many decisions that need to be made, and like, are you making the decisions? Like, how are you going about it, right? Like, are you taking the best steps to go forward, right? You're figuring out all the things you need to figure out so it doesn't come up as a problem later on. And honestly, it sounds like everything that you did was the thing that you needed to do. And I'm super, super stoked that that's the case, man. Like yeah. And I can tell you, being an athlete, and like, I mean, I've been seeing you do this. I met you in 2023, right? And it's like, I've seen Desert City grow, right? And I've seen all of this, and it's pretty incredible to see how much effort, love, and passion you put into it, right? Because like, I'm telling you, dopest competition I've ever been to, and it's like, it shows, like, from the top down. Like, it's like all the details are there, the vibes are good, nobody's like, it's not like a normal competition, You know what I mean? Everything's smooth. Everything. It's just really great, and it shows how much you care about it, man. That's really, really awesome.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, for sure. Of course. Like, you should hear that all the time, honestly.
Means a lot.
So here's a question. What would you say that sets apart a high performer? Like, what type of mindset does it take to be a high performer? Like, to like endure things that are thrown your way instead of just being like, it's fine. What does it take to like strive?
Yeah, man. I've had to wrestle with this because I think just in my nature, I'm ultra competitive and I want to win. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, well, you do whatever it takes at all costs to, to get ahead, to win, to, and I think this word ambition or driven often gets highlighted or gets elevated within our society. Oh man, he's so driven, he's so ambitious, those types of terms and words. And not often that's where we associate, high performers in that regard. And we put them on pedestals, but the reality is those pedestals are uneven or unstable at best a lot of times. And we've seen so many falls and so many devastations within those high performers, their marriages or their friendships. Oftentimes they're isolated or alone, they're lonely. Mm-hmm. Their families are not healthy, and we don't see that side of things. We just see the performance side. And I talk about that being the tip of the iceberg. Performance is like what's on top of the water, right? It's what we see. But what the reality is 90% of the mass of the iceberg is what is underneath the water. And so we have to go down those layers and to really see the deep waters of our soul. And that to me is the indicator of a high performer and their health is exactly that. Those who examine the deepest waters of their emotions, of their friendships and relationships, of their, call it God or call it a higher power, whatever you want to call it. But if they have some semblance of a true north and their identity is wrapped not just in their performance and what they do, because the reality is you're always going to find somebody that's better, that's done it longer, that's more successful, and you will never achieve greatness or success if you're always going after that. But you will if you have wins that are in alignment with your vision, mission, and values of not of your business, but who you are as a person. And I think, so many high performers, they have vision statements and mission statements and values for their company, but they don't actually have that for their lives. And so what would it look like to have that alignment and that awareness of who you are and what you're actually called to and your capacity to do it if you looked inward more than you looked outward? And if we also praise what's happening inside people versus what they do for us. And I think it's such a disruption within our society because we don't think or talk like that. But the reality is we need people that are healthy inward, not just outward. So I would say, man, that's a high performer, is looking inside, being healthy emotionally, being healthy relationally, and then ultimately being completely undone and surrendered to a higher power. I mean, if somebody can come into a room and say, I'm not chasing ego, or I'm not trying to win approval, I'm completely comfortable with who I am and what I believe is who God has designed me to be. And dude, that's somebody I want to be like, right? It's like you can sense that when you walk into a room and you have a leader that lives their life that way, you're like, I want to be like that. And I think we need more. We need to be able to praise more. We need to be able to praise people more for what they're doing, the work that they're doing inside, versus their accolades and their performance on the outside. Because one is indicative of a healthy model of leadership, and the other is just performance driven, that ultimately it's either like you're on the bus or you're off it, or you're getting hit by it, right? And so there's so many things that we praise with demonstrative leadership that is no room for a healthy community or healthy society. And I think we need to really dig a little bit further into what it means to be holistically healthy, heart, mind, soul, and strength.
Yeah, dude, you nailed it. Like on the that's like my version of it, right? It's so hard for people to like put, I'll be happy when I get to this thing, or I'll be happy if this thing goes this way, or right. It's like, you can't put happiness on the other side of a thing, but you also can't put happiness on successes, right? Like celebrate them for sure. But I think too many people fall into the fact like, oh, I hit a snatch PR. Now I immediately want another PR. And it's like, dude, just live in it for a second, right? Like, if you have goals, that's great. Have goals, but like live in your successes, share your successes, right? And as long as you're like doing it for the right reasons, everything should be good,
Absolutely.
And like, I think more people should be higher performing, like when it comes to things like that, right? Like celebrating their wins and taking care of people. And, when it comes down to it, like leave your ego at the door. Nobody likes it. It's terrible. And it doesn't even look good. Right. So it's like, it's one of those things. And that's
Absolutely.
It's one of those, it's a tough thing. Right. All right. I got a question for you. What is the biggest mindset win you've had in the last year?
Man, last year, a mindset win. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with what we're just talking about.
Okay.
It's about, for me, there's so many things that my mindset was, well, I'll say this. My mindset was it's never good enough.
Okay.
That was what I thought was my edge, was it's never good enough. You're always striving for some semblance of perfection that obviously doesn't exist.
Right.
Right. And I always thought that about myself, is like, oh man, you can always be better. Like, I looked in the mirror and I always think, man, Adam, this flaw, that flaw, you're not doing well here. You can do better here. And it could always be better, and that served me to a point. It's brought me great success, maybe, or people will praise me for, oh man, you're such a hard worker, or man, look what you did here and here and here. And yet it was never satisfying. It was never enough. And I thought I was just saying it from a standpoint of being objective, like this is never enough. But what I realized, my mindset was actually, I am not enough.
Okay.
And so I had to.
Why do you think that was like so ingrained? How did you shift it away from that? Because I used to be the same way, right? Like I never thought I'd be good enough for anything, anyone, right? It was just like, I'm just going to kind of fly through life. And now it's like, I'm me. This is who I am. I have a lot to offer. And it's like, I'm completely comfortable with knowing that like, I give my best effort every single day, right? So like, how was it to switch that, and where did it come from?
Well, I think it's exactly what we're talking about, Trent, and that is, everything was a performance. I was in musicals as a kid. I was on, stages. I was also in athletics. So I was on a quote unquote stage, whether it be a court or a field or a track. And everything was objectively critiqued, right? You didn't go fast enough to win, so this person beat you. You didn't do this good enough to, score as many points or whatever it may be. You lost the game, right? And I think and a lot of times it's why we love sports, is there's if you do this, there's a formula to it. If you do this, you'll get this type of outcome. And it's very objective. You either win or you lose. And life is not like that, right? It's not quite like that, in the sense of there's a scoreboard hanging over your head and there's an indicator of you lost this match, whether it be, a conversation with your wife or a disagreement that you have, or trying to parent your kids or whatever it may be. But so often we actually do that, right? That's why we don't shut our mouths and listen to our wives or our significant others or our friends when they're talking. We just talk over them, or we want to win the argument because we believe that there's a scoreboard right over us. And if we don't double down, and I see this all the time with some of my friends or even with myself, I'll get this like feeling inside me is like, man, I'm going to win this. I could be completely wrong. And oftentimes I am completely wrong, but you know what? I'm going to double down and
Right.
I'm going to win this argument. I'm doing this with my 7-year-old. It's like, what am I doing right now? Like, this is not a game. This is not for me to win. This is for me to understand, a lot about them, a lot about myself, ask for forgiveness, all those types of things. And that's the inward, dialogue that often we don't go to. And we're not understanding what we feel, how we feel, and how other people feel in order to really understand what's the outcome that we're trying to get here. Because the outcome we're trying to get here is I want to be the best version of myself. I want you to be the best version of yourself. And we want to partner together. And my definition of partnership is a shared vision and equal sacrifice. So what's the vision for our friendship? You know, if we're partners in this, if we're truly friends, like we should draft up a vision for our friendship. And we should have a semblance or a sense of a shared sacrifice that's going to get us to that destination.
Okay.
And so often we just don't think like that, man. And for me, going back to I'm not good enough was I was constantly measuring myself against other people. And so I was constantly competing. I was constantly fearful or had insecurities, right? I would let other people's insecurities make me insecure. So we all have insecurities, right? So you're portraying your insecurities on me. You're putting your insecurities on me. Well, guess what that's doing for me? That's going to make me even more insecure, right? And so then we do this to ourselves and each other. And we do this in all kinds of different relationships in different ways. But I think it really has to do with like an incorrect view of self and an incorrect view of what is success and outcomes that we're trying to accomplish and do with our life. And when we're constantly measuring up, we're constantly evaluating relationships based off of what can I get or what can I do to seek praise or seek some reward, man, that is a shitty way to live. It just is, dude. And that kind of wraps into, man, I'm not good enough. Like I see this person over here doing this, and this, like I could do more. Man, if anybody can do it, I can do it. And then it's constantly striving for that next thing with, no end in sight at all. Because never, the reality check for me was, guess what, Adam? It's never going to be good enough. But guess what? You have a God that loves you exactly where you are and loves you so much to not keep you where you are. He wants to make you like his son, Jesus, who was perfect and lived a perfect life so that you can have a model to achieve not greatness for yourself, but greatness for the world, right? Because the world needs me to be the best version of me. I mean,
Adam, the best version of you, it helps everybody else, right? Because like having a shitty version of me does no good for anyone. Absolutely. If I'm in a shit mood, it doesn't help my relationship. It doesn't help my dog. It doesn't help the people at the gym. You know what I mean? It's like, what is the point? And it's like, there's a lot of days, like, so I had specifically today, I had to wake up at 4:30 to go coach the 5:30 a.m. class. I'm not a morning person, right? And I'll be the first to admit it. But I have to have like 20 minutes where I don't speak a word except for to my dog. I get to eat a bowl of cereal or whatever I'm going to have. And I just get to like, before the day decides how I'm going to act, I get to just be myself, right? Which is great. And I love that. And yeah, you're nailing it, dude. This is why we're friends, because we think a lot alike. This is great. So, I want to get into what Endure is, man.
Yeah, so I mean, it came out of the dark night of the soul. It came out of that period in 2023 where I didn't know what was up or what I was doing with my life. And, like I said, even if I wanted to be a part of a ministry or, fitness or my marriage or anything like that, I had to really seek some inward stability and health and I realized I was emotionally immature, hence all the, it's not good enough, you're never good enough, all those things, but also just how I viewed myself. And I realized when I started talking about it, all these guys were like, yeah, me too, me too, me too, me too. And it was just a band of brothers that felt the same way. And I wasn't alone. And, I kick myself with, for this, but it's like, man, I wish I would have shared this sooner. And I saw these stats about men and loneliness. And there's like 80% of men don't have one person in their life that they seek out for counsel or some form of mentorship. Most men don't have a mentor, never have had a mentor in their life, somebody that's been ahead of them, that's gone before them, that can redirect them or guide them in any way. That's sort of not a part of most men's lives. Most men don't have a community or of friendships. So there's just a lot of things that I started reading and looking into that, like, this has to change, man. Like, we have to, men especially, there's a stat that I used to use when I was in church, but it was this whole idea of like most times women are the ones that are seeking spiritual guidance and direction. And most men are like, that's not for me. I often say like men need a challenge. They need some form of counseling or coaching, and they need connection. They need connection with other men.
I
And
agree.
so how can I design something, an environment where that produces that type of fruit?
Yeah.
And so we started a men's group of guys that just get together every Thursday, and we just talk about life. We talk about what's going on, and we're able to openly share. And I've seen so many men get sober, restore their relationships, their marriages, come to faith. All of those things have been reflected in our men's group. And I'm super grateful for the guys that have been a part of that. In fact, we just went on our annual snowboarding trip that we do every year. We had 17 dudes go on a snowboarding trip, and we just get away and just get together and just able to have a really good time with each other. And it's an important part of men's health overall. And so, so that's kind of how it started. And I was like, man, maybe I could do something with the ministry world that I've been in and the CrossFit world that I've been in. And let's kind of infuse those together. And this word endure has just been a huge part of my vocabulary over the last 3 years. It comes from James 1. James was Jesus's brother. He wrote the epistle or the book of James. And he says, consider it pure joy when you face trials or tests of many kind. So consider it joy when you face those trials, because the testing of your faith, and I say this a lot, the testing of anything, the testing of your marriage, the testing of your parenting, the testing of your fitness. If it's not tested, it can't be trusted, right?
That's true.
If it's always comfortable, if it's always going right, man, something's going on, right? And so the testing of your faith produces, and this word is endurance, produces endurance or perseverance. It produces this idea of you have to go through the hardship. You have to go through the pain and the suffering and the hard times in order to, and James ends it this way. He says, in order to be fully mature, complete, and lack nothing. And I don't know about you, bro, but like when I read that last part of like, man, this is what endurance will get you, is to be fully mature, complete, and lack nothing. Like there's nothing else I want in this life.
Right.
To be fully mature, complete, and lack nothing. Because often we live our lives with this idea of a hole that we're trying to fill, and we're constantly filling it. And so we're lacking everything. And Jesus is promising this life to the fullest, and that is lacking nothing. And so, man, I want that, and I want other people to experience that. So we started this nonprofit called Endure, where we focus on men and men's health and having challenges. And so we're doing Rim to Rim to Rim, which is the Grand Canyon hike in May. So we'll do a challenge every year. We'll have some form of connection where we do events and things like that, retreats, just getting men together to be able to be men and come with a shared vision, a purpose behind it. And then, I also had a heart for gym owners. And so a part of Endure is meeting gym owners where they are and creating a culture that really is healthy, not just physically, but I believe, again, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. So how do you create that culture that's holistic and that's really taking care of the gym owner? So many people are not taking care of them, and they don't know what to do. And so we are coming alongside to say, hey, we want to take care of you as you take care of other people. And how can we do this together? So that's kind of the 1-2 punch of Endure.
Dude, that's absolutely amazing. And I that hits home on so many different levels, right? Because like when it comes to like everybody thinks that we need to be the rock all the time, right? And it's not okay to be not okay. And it's I wish so long ago that I would have just admitted that I wasn't okay, right? Like I'm right where I need to be. Don't get me wrong. But like if I would have addressed the issues that I had so long ago, it would have set me up to be so much better of a person. It just took me a long time to get to here, right? And there are so many people out there that don't have help, and they don't have community. They don't have somebody to reach out to and just talk with, just bullshit and be like, hey man, I don't feel that great today, and it sucks because that connection is like what we all strive for. I think there's a lot of dudes out there that could benefit from what you're doing just because they don't have somebody to talk to, right? They don't have a community, right? I want to get all the contact info and everything like for Endure. And if you do like virtual hangs and everything like that.
Yeah, we're going to start that here soon. Right now, what we do is we have cohorts that for gym owners specifically. So gym owners or communities within gyms that want to establish what I call is just a kingdom culture or a holistic culture. It's faith-based, so obviously people that have a vision and values that center around of faith, is exactly what we're looking to try to help and come alongside. But certainly it's anybody, for that matter, to be able to have a faith-driven or I would say value-driven community. We definitely want to come alongside. So we do cohorts within those, and we just ask that gym owners create a team of people that have those and share those same values. And then it's a 7-week cohort that we walk through identity, responsibility, and celebration. So it goes through who we are, exactly what we just talked about. It really stems from having awareness of who you are, and then what is your responsibility and what is not, because there's a lot of times we take on the weight of the world and it's not ours to carry. And so it's really discerning what is our responsibility and what's not our responsibility. And I think the biggest thing with it is creating a team, because you cannot do it alone. If you want to go, that whole adage of you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together. And that's really the crux of what we're trying to put together. And then, what are the right metrics to celebrate? So often we get caught up in so many other things. You have to take care of your business, obviously, and there's clear metrics in which to do that. But we also need some metrics and wins around the people and the community aspect of it, because that is a large part of what we do in the CrossFit world. And so often we minimize it, or we just discard it altogether. And like I said before, it's if we don't maintain it, or excel it. I wouldn't even say maintain, because maintain is obviously going the wrong direction. But if we don't care for it, right? Yeah. If we don't care for it and grow it, it will disrupt in a big way your whole business model, because it is the crux of why we do what we do, and is the center of the CrossFit community, is the community itself. So we really put some metrics behind that. Let's start celebrating the right things. Let's create a culture that celebrates the right things. And so that's a big part of it as well, just giving people some frameworks for that. So we're doing that. And then later this year, we'll start really creating men's cohorts. We launched our men's, I would call it a ministry, but really a focus, a group here in Phoenix. We have another one that we're coming alongside in Pennsylvania. So we're super excited about that. And so really just giving men tools to be able to create the community that we've created within their context as well. So we're launching that as well.
That's amazing, man. I love that. So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, man, I'm kind of lost, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, Adam Everett, at Adam Everett on Instagram, or Endure Project, Ndure Project. On Instagram as well. So follow us there. We're doing a lot of different things, challenges throughout the year. Currently, we're doing a Lent challenge. I'm calling it Ruck and Reflect, where we can reflect on a scripture and ruck together for a mile. And so we're doing that. But yeah, any of those would be great.
Awesome. I love that, man. Dude, it's always good talking to you. I love getting to hang out, even though it's like we're however many miles away. But yeah, we definitely need to keep in touch more often. And
absolutely.
I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. This was really,
appreciate
really great.
It, man.
And yeah, I'm gonna shoot some people your way for sure. Yeah, we'll chat about it a little bit more coming up. Cool.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. All right.
Thank you. Peace.